Well, let's let Stevie do a quick answer and then we'll get to other questions.
I think it's important that when we talk about ethnic studies that, what's your name, sir?
Ted Weisskall.
Okay, Ted, that we have to center the fact that ethnic studies is an anti-racist project. And because of that, we have to ask who is qualified to do that work. And if you are an anti-racist and you're working in a cultural center that is based on anti-racism, you have to understand that also this is coming from a long set of historical knowledge that comes from our communities. And also that we also undergo studying and we undergo rigorous methods and training and our own epistemological foundation. So I say that because I have a PhD in ethnic studies, but I was fortunate enough because that was built on generations of people who were non-white that were fighting and tearing down the walls for not only entry, but entirely redesigning the meaning and the intellectual project and the foundation of what it meant to get a bachelor's degree, of what it meant to get a master's degree, and I'll give you an example. Many of my white professors discouraged me from going into getting a PhD in ethnic studies. They said, you won't be marketable, you will not be someone that is trained rigorously, you are not someone that is going to be able to choose where you live. And in fact, it made me more marketable. It made me connect with my community. And in addition, it was the only space where I could find queer people of color, queer people. And it also drew in, Ted, other, not white allies only, but white people that were on the fringes of whiteness, that were queer, that were attracted to being into these departments because they didn't fit into white culture and the dominant white culture, which meant to be straight and normal, and they were disowned by their white community. And so I say that is that ethnic studies is critical to saving what reminiscences we have of the humanity in this country. And when we do this work, we are piloting a project of social justice and transformation that imagine a world that does not exist, that we really have to even create new vocabularies. And I may not be answering your question, but what I want to get at is that, you know, everyone has their own personal experience, including me, and yours is not any more valid than mine, right, or invalid. But I am saying that given the fact that I have a PhD in ethnic studies, I can say confidently I am an expert in this field.
So, yeah, good. Let's do, we got, you want to go?
Yeah.
I think let's move on. Let's.
No, can I respond? I mean, respond to all of you also?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think...
You want to come to the mic so everybody can hear you? And then we're going to...
I would also like to add one caveat to both sides of the lens here. I would also like to add the caveat that just because people are ethnic people or a member of the community, that also does not mean necessarily they have the expertise necessarily in ethnic studies or are trained in ethnic studies. And that has also been part of the problem of when strikers talk about the issue about what happened to their baby in its upbringing. That, you know, simply because we, you know, hire people of a particular ethnic background does not mean they have been trained or have necessarily the expertise or the insight of that also. So I think that's just a point to add.
Thank you.
Faculty member at Cal State Fullerton, former chair and current faculty member of the Department of Asian American Studies. I am only here because at the very last minute, my campus provost decided that, oh yes, we will fund your trip to this meeting because the system-wide Senate decided that we will now explore an ethics studies graduation requirement, and so quick, somebody has to go. And so I took time off my research leave to be here. And then I realized that not everybody knows about the Senate-wide resolution to explore ethnic studies as a graduation requirement. And I was like telling people, you didn't hear about it? And it's, your Senate should tell you about this. And we're supposedly supposed to give our response by November 1st to this statewide Senate. So Well, two things. I really hope that everybody here and you all will participate in the meeting tomorrow, right? Which I assume is going to be about getting on the same page in terms of giving a response, because we're supposed to be consulted for this resolution, or for the purposes of the resolution, which is another thing is, it's an exploration. So I'm really kind of, the second thing I want to say is, what are we going to focus on? Are we going to, maybe both, responding to the resolution, which again, what does this mean? To explore a graduation requirement versus actually implementing one? Or the other thing, to pursue a 1460 kind of strategy, or maybe both. So I guess those are two parts. Is I hope you all know about that we're supposed to be giving a response on the statewide resolution. And number two, what is the strategy?
Yeah.
So
Statewide Academic Senate. To give you a little bit of insight, your senators should have contacted you already about what we're trying to do. What the Statewide Academic Senate has done is worked with the Discipline Council to try and find an avenue to create a graduation requirement of ethnic studies. Two things are central to this goal. One is to take this effort out of the hands of the legislature. Many of you who are not from California may not know we don't always stay liberal. And by consequence, should we go back to being slightly Duke-Magian or Pete Wilsonian, if we open Pandora's box with legislation, everyone after us can come through and dictate our curriculum to us. I've died on many arguments, but what I was able to do was get the statewide Senate to work with the Discipline Council to really talk about how we can move forward together so that we create curriculum internally and leave the legislature as the overseer and oversight, which is what they do best. So tomorrow, this is what I will be coming to talk about. How do we move forward with our best practices? And actually, I had a question for some of the students, and I've observed them at CSU Unity and in leadership positions that they may not know about. But one of the things with, especially Northridge, their Area F is very unique. And it's something that they've collaborated on internally, which reflects best practices for consultation and disciplinary deference, if I may borrow from Dr. Karanga. And so therefore, so we don't lose this, how have you all experienced Area F? It's one thing to talk about it being problematic and an issue for the university in your loss of ethnic studies. But one thing that causes our administration in the Chancellor's office, as well as the legislature, is to listen to your stories about how you experience that. And you all have great track record with fixed financial aid, and the other one is with food and housing insecurity, which now has reoccurring funding as opposed to one time. So I'll turn that over to you all, and I'll save the rest of my commentary for tomorrow, but I really would love to hear that, not just from the student perspective, but also the faculty perspective, because I was under the delusion that you all were actively consulted. And so this is why my death on the Senate floor was worthwhile. Hearing that, or seeing the head shake, I should say, lets me know that something is not always being communicated effectively, and I would love to hear your experience so that I can communicate that.
That has a lot to do with the fact that Gerald Schutte is our academic senator, and he is anti-ethnic studies.
And the way the students found out was in the summer of 2017, the fall of 2017, the Department of Chicano Studies, Asian American Studies, and Central American Studies, and American Indian Studies, they organized a meeting where they informed students about the executive orders. And it was a packed room, and we're all in shock about these executive orders, because I remember explicitly that they weren't even informed about it. Like the CSU Chancellor's office were lagging in sending effective emails informing about the executive orders. There wasn't really transparency happening. And where students got involved was because of Section F is how I was introduced to ethnic studies, specifically Central American Studies. Without that requirement, I would have never taken a Central American class at all. I wouldn't even be here today, actually. I can't even imagine myself presenting about how important ethnic studies is to me without Section F. For example, my dad is from Guatemala and my mom is from El Salvador, and they both escaped the war that was happening that was U.S. funded. And I didn't even know it was U.S. funded without the introductory course, and how U.S. has been explicitly how they intervene in over 50 Latin American countries and how they've been upholding like imperialism throughout the country, throughout South and Central America. And that's where Section F is also where a lot of, like, for example, we took over a faculty senate meeting, and a lot of the students got to the mic and they told how they told their testimonials and their stories about how Section F changed their lives. And also we've collaborated between like MECHA and Central American Studies, the United Student Association, and the Black Student Union. And in fact, the Black Student Union was the one that in 2017 where they created the Week of Action. So it's been a lot of collaborative efforts across students of color on our campus. And really it's really important that we also collaborate with faculty, which is how we've been, how we got our president, Diane Harrison, to retain Section F on our campus. But what happened was they implemented the executive order executively despite the faculty votes to not implement it. So with that, Section F is still being undermined and is still being threatened, and the struggle still continues today.
Yeah, I'd like to just add that the Faculty Senate has voted 3 times against the executive order. The implementation of Executive Orders 1100R and EO 1110. And that is because of the fact that we see EO 1110, which deals with developmental math and writing, as an equity issue for students of color. So the annihilation of those programs are effectively leaving them to the wind to fail, setting them up to fail. Secondly, with the EO 1100R, one of the problems that, and the reasons why we were even able to get the support of our white fellow faculty is because of the fact that Lauren Blanchard and Chancellor White never consulted with us in a meaningful fashion. They sent an email to our Faculty Senate President, Mary Pat Stein, who said that she represented ethnic studies. Mary Pat Stein has never taken a class in ethnic studies. So I find it very hard to believe that she represents us.
And she also told the department chair of Chicana Studies to speak proper English in the meeting.
In the same meeting about our consultation where she said she represented us. At that time, you know, one of the reasons why the students mobilized was, and this just happened in fall 2018, was because of the fact that there was a lack of consultation, in addition to the fact that the Chancellor has intentionally been attacking us. So for example, he has called the students uncivil in meetings. He's used the whole rhetoric of civility. They've called the faculty of color in the Senate uncivil. So they use another trope of civilization. And then the third component that we find troubling is they call the police on us. So for example, I have been blocked out of my own faculty senate. So I don't know how there can be a meaningful consultation if we are physically being assaulted by our police on our campus, physically being pushed by Mary Pat Stein, including many of our students, and physically being assaulted on camera by fellow faculty senators from the students' perspective. So the whole idea of consultation, if you call it something that's coercive, and now they're trying to plunge it down our throat without faculty governance. So now they're basically going to streamline it, and they're actually threatening to take away control of general education completely on our campus. So there is no consultation on the part of the Chancellor's office whatsoever.
First, I mean, I think it's really, we know this, but I think we should remind ourselves that we have the administration, we have the Senate, we have the union. So we have different, and you know, the union is negotiating on our behalf as workers, because the university never recognizes, you know, not even, I mean, they would like us to continue working over work and so on. So that's one thing. Secondly is the Chancellor's office is actually subject to all the forces that are here. As the right wing becomes stronger, and this is why this whole incivility business and so on, it comes out of the response, weaponizing free speech in the interest of the right wing. I mean, it has increasingly become more and more as Trump emboldened more white supremacy, as all of these attacks keep happening. We're going to see more of it. For us, it's very, very clear. I mean, the Chancellor himself got up and condemned me for criticizing President Wang for welcoming Zionists to campus. And actually, I'm supposed to be like against in inclusion and diversity and so on. I don't have the values of the university. So I've been, and as a result of that, I've been subjected to death threats. I mean, not just like people criticizing, I mean death threats, and leaving voicemail on my office voice saying Muslims will die. And okay, what is the university police doing about it? Nothing, of course, because the university police is paid by the administration. I don't know why, we should not really be surprised by this. So this stuff, all this language that's coming out and all the executive orders are always made specifically to protect the administration and to protect them from liability and protect them from lawsuits. I mean, it is, so I think we really need to be clear about what is it that we're trying to do. Once we say we want to build ethnic studies, we want to popularize ethnic studies, it's a very big problem. So I think we need to always think about that. And the Senate, unfortunately, does some of the stuff, but a lot of the rules in the Senate are actually not even written for having any teeth whatsoever. So the Senate every single time comes up. You remember when we talked to the provost forgot Muslim holidays, and considered Israel Independence Day as a national holiday for Jews, even though in Israel itself is not even celebrated. Okay? And we criticized, we went to the Senate, what did the Senate resolution come out? What was the Senate resolution? Oh, students, the responsibility of the students to come and tell us about their religious holidays. So now we put the onus on the students, instead of us actually being, like taking responsibility for it, and a lot of it is for liability. So I think we really need to think about what is our strategy. I'm not talking about you in particular. I know all the stuff that has happened. But I really think
there were just 145 holidays that were asked to be recognized. And so that policy for any faculty member was just basically really not possible.
But I think it was.
I just wanted to let you know that. So it wasn't that they got excluded.
I followed up. I know.
145
But I think the reason it was done in order not to respond about the stuff about Israel.
One thing that you mentioned was the union, and Charles Toombs isn't here, but if you haven't been involved with the union recently, I would suggest that you would really like to be involved with the union. And like the research that you're showing and Students for Quality of Education, I first saw that research at one of the union conferences. It's a very different demographic, it's a very different world. I was shocked when I started going to the union now. So I'd suggest you might, if you're not part of it, you might check it out.
So we have another panel starting in 5 minutes.
Thank you. One, to the students, keep fighting. You bring a smile to my heart. Because the struggle goes on. It ain't just anything. Keep fighting for the men. So I'm being here at San Francisco State, as I said, with Ken. When I had my a couple of students from ethnic studies working with me, they didn't have the math skills. I caught them copying out of the internet and Google, and you talk about somebody go off, to deal with real research. Our students must have the mathematical skills to do the research for the analytical analysis to come up with results. Now, if they outlaw the math, then that should be incorporated in the class with the teachers in ethnic studies. Just as I taught environmental chemistry and engineering at UC Berkeley to middle school kids, 102, but then I had a book for the parents to take every night. The children had their book, and then you teach it. If they don't know it, you incorporate it within your lesson plan and within your syllabus and curriculum. You're not here to, oh, they didn't get their prerequisites, so they can't be with me. Teach them if you're about the education of your people and ending suppression and racism. It is on us then to educate, to equip them so they can be the leadership of tomorrow. And without the analysts, Dr. Thornton Hall. Do anybody know who David Thornton was? He was a black man, a physicist who discovered the 103rd element on the periodic table. He said everything is a mathematical problem. The question is, do you understand it so you can select the right formula to solve it? We have too many people talking about it and not enough people working on the solution. I'm advocating for a solution and incorporating these analytical skills so that they can come up with the right formula to help us live a little longer. Thank you. And brother, which one of you are in the science? Nursing or health? We need to hook up because I'm doing research in the longitudinal studies and the rest.
Are you offering a job? Is that what you're saying?
If he was on this campus, he'll work out a work-study piece. With my little dollars, I get this research with Dr. Vinsa and Ramona, old San Francisco State graduates, but we're still in the community serving and looking for solutions. Because right now, Bayview, life expectancy is 14 years less than somebody who lives on Russian Hill. It's the worst in the Bay Area. And to the women in the audience, the breast cancer rate for the Bay Area is the worst in the world. Go read Scientific America, October '95 for xenoestrogen, where the pesticides from the agriculture is now in the Bay, and half of the water is going down south, so it stays in. And I cry at the funerals. I cry at the funerals. There are 72 churches I've been in, 57 in Bayview. I see the young women who have children, who are, out of the 7 we discovered, 4 died. Their children without, they have no business dying. Thank you.
All right, thank you.